Thank you for staying with the Monday Report. You're just in time for the town hall session. We'd like to hear your views on the situation with BBI in the county assemblies. The hashtag is Monday Report at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. You still have a chance to send in your video questions on 0742 961 341. Let me introduce my guests really quick before I get into your videos that have already come through. We have Honorable Ndegwa Wahome, County Assembly's Forum Chairperson, and Nyandarua Speaker. Thank you so much for coming in. We also have Honorable Joshua Kipto, Speaker, Nandi County Assembly. Thank you so much for making time. We have Arnold Maliba, Executive Director, Open Future Hub, and Agnes Ibarra, Policy and Governance Consultant. Thank you so much for making time, both of you. Let's start with your videos and the questions you've sent through, because this is how the town hall works. Listen.
Our MCAs, like we've seen, some have already passed the BBI bill. Some have also rejected. My big question is, are they reading it before presenting it and voting for it, or they are just passing it because of political lines that they've taken so that they please their masters?
Are the MCAs ready? Are they even understanding the bill itself? Do they know the in and out of this bill? Secondly, what are some of the ways that we are going to educate the people? We have not even, some of the MCAs, we are not even seeing them in our wards. They're not even available. So what is the touch? MCAs have lost the touch with the people. How are we going to understand this particular bill?
Are they passing BBI after discussing it and having understood the contents in it, or they are following their boss's advices? This is question one. Question number two. Suppose they shoot down the BBI bill. What about the 5% that they are being promised that they will now have their own funds, and hence they will not again go to the governor to play to the governance tune so that they can be financed to do development in their in their wards?
What is it about the document that they are looking at and deciding whether it is fit to pass or reject? Plus, is there real public participation, or what they are doing is just a formality, hurrying to make a verdict in the interest of time? Also, is their decision based on the contents of the document, and is it independent, or is it being influenced by the car grants they were given recently?
They distributed the copies of the BBI report itself to the people? Have they taken the people through a thorough public participation process so that they guide the same people to understand what's in the BBI report?
I've seen the national government is struggling to give counties 15%. What about this 35%? Where is it going to come from? Counties have spent most of their money to pay salaries. So how are we going to come up with the development in this BBI? Thank you.
I have a very strong feeling, and my concerns is telling me that political corruption have already overtaken us, where we have leaders being bribed to do what they have already been paid to do, or being bribed in order to bypass laws and regulations. A very sad state.
As a youth, and having read the BBI, I find absolutely no reason to oppose it. Actually, it serves me more good than bad. Take, for instance, the 7-year tax holiday, the additional money that is coming to the county that will also create employment opportunities for the youth. We also have the additional constituency that will mean the proximity to CDF funds will be closer. These are just some of the benefits that are found in BBI. However, my bone of contention comes in when we make it to be an issue of give and take affair. We cannot be a country of handouts. It cannot be that for the MCAs to pass the BBI, they have to be given car grants. If that is legitimized, then we as the youth will be right to demand that for us to pass the BBI, then that the HELB loan must be converted into a grant.
Honorable Wahome, I'll start with you, because the last time I was with you here on Daybreak, you were confident that the assemblies would pass this BBI. In fact, you were confident that the threshold would be reached. You've had the people wondering, on what basis are you passing this BBI? We've seen that happening in 3 counties or assemblies already, and you're their chairman. So on what basis are they passing it on?
Okay, thank you very much, Trevor, and also I'm grateful for you having me here on the Monday Report. I would wish to say that why I have stated the much I have stated in the past is because that the BBI is carrying with it most of the aspirations and concerns of the assemblies in this country. I told you the last time that we had structured our concerns into about 8 segments. One is on the money coming to devolution now, that 5%. And I think it has been addressed by most of the persons who are speaking there, the Kenyan citizens. And the main issue for us assemblies is that 5% good or bad? If it is good, does it prejudice anybody by being in a constitution that will govern this country maybe for the next generation? We had also, when we made our report to the Haji Committee, and may the Lord rest his soul in peace. He was a great Kenyan, a nationalist. When we presented our report to Haji Committee, we also asked that we need the wards to have a role regulating development in the ward. That is the Ward Development Fund, and it is there in this BBI. We also said we want financial independence for the county assemblies. A fund has been established for the county assemblies. Okay. We had also said we want ministers to come from the assemblies. And now it is there in the constitutional amendment bill. We had also said that the governors and the deputies, over and above being the chief executive officers of the county, that they be directly answerable to the county assemblies. And again, we had said it is not fair and it is discriminatory when an MC is required to resign 6 months before the elections to contest for a parliamentary seat. That requirement in the current constitution was removed. Okay. And then we also were in agreement, because as county assemblies of this country, we agreed we deal purely with matters that are of common interest. We forget the other issues. If it is national issues about political positions in the national arena, we leave it to those who are there. If it is the other issues, we leave it to those who are there. And then we talked about enterprise and the management of microeconomy. And all of it is now included in BBI 2 and in the Constitutional Amendment Bill as section number 11A. So in essence, assemblies make their own independent decisions. But then whatever they had given to me and my team to take to the Haji Committee, to take to Bomas 1, almost all of it is incorporated in the Constitutional Amendment Bill that is with the assemblies today. All right.
Kipto, you are in court. Yes. You want an interpretation of how the county assemblies, whether they're obligated to conduct public participation on this bill. Did your needs get addressed by Honorable Wahome to the BBI committee?
Now, I think not to be seen as if I'm in conflict with the chair, I just need to ask a simple question. When you talk about a referendum is pegged on issues. It's not a choice about a candidate. And us going to court, that is Nandi County Assembly and Kericho County Assembly, we were trying to avoid what we have right now. If you look at the videos that have been shared, you find a clear divide where the good policies are spelled out very well, and that's how my chair has been able to pick out the good things. However, the nuances about the negative aspects about the BBI are also on the table. Now, my county assembly thought otherwise and said, if indeed we want a win-win approach, we just need 2 aspects. Give us a multiple choice referendum. That is a practice world over. Even in the US, when they conduct their general elections, they always tag along a referendum on an issue basis. So our question to the Supreme Court was only 2 things. Number 1, give us multiple choice. If I accept all the good things that my chair has talked about that touches on the county assembly, fair, we'll mark them right. But the things I disagree with, for example, an expanded judiciary, a case for a judiciary ombudsman, which at this point, even the judiciary itself never proposed the same position. When you have such a case, more importantly is the precedent, that if you have a case where up to more than 10 or 12 chapters of the Constitution are being amended in this manner, the precedent being set. So when you have all those on the paper, our question or our issue was, give us a chance to be able to decide in a multiple choice. Secondly, the issue about public participation. If you look at our Constitution, it talks about a referendum being part of popular initiative, but there is no provision about amending or changing. So you have a quagmire whereby our public are used to public participation where their views are taken on board, and you amend, report back to them with the amendments. But for a constitutional bill, that is not available. So our question to the Supreme Court was, what is the position? How then do you conduct a public participation? How do you make the public satisfied that their view counts? And as we stand, I think the Attorney General has put in a preliminary opinion, which we seem not to disagree with. It talks about the idea of picking the will of the people. And that goes to an answer I've seen most viewers are asking, that what is the essence of public participation if indeed there will be no change, comma, or a full stop. But I'll tell them this, it's a question of decision. We do civic education in form of a public participation, then ask the public, are they in an agreement with the issues or are they not in agreement with it? Then we weigh. So whatever they say is what we take to the assembly. So I don't want us to say that assemblies are just basically passing, that they are not reading. We cannot divorce the assembly from the public perception, from the public popular support. It will be morally and politically wrong for my county assembly, for example, to go against the wishes of the public. If the public in Nandi County are vehemently against the BBI, then my county assembly has no choice but to follow, because these are representative of the people. So we should not dissociate the two. And I would want the public to understand it's a political process. You cannot say it's a legal process. It's a political, it's a legal process, both of it. And at the bottom line, I wouldn't have a problem with Siaya, Homa Bay doing what they're doing, Baringo doing what, because the local dynamics count. Except that for quite a number of assemblies, look, we are only counting 4 assemblies. 43 assemblies are yet to consider. Why? We are running it through the process. Like in my assembly, we have just tabled, allocated a committee, awaiting public participation, which will be done at the ward level, report back to the House, put a question to it.
Okay. Agnes, what comes to your mind when you hear MCAs demanding car grants before they even start debating this BBI bill?
Trevor, thank you for having me on Monday Report. And I think maybe before I jump into your question, I think for me would be taking this opportunity to give a slight backdrop to what devolution means to this country, and maybe also express my disappointment to what we saw in Baringo, the fighting. It wasn't a good picture, like to say the least. But for me, Trevor, I'd like to remind our viewers and also maybe the MCAs who seem to be opposing this constitutional moment that devolution has been something that has been fronted into our country for very many times. And we saw that in 2005, we had champions like Dr. Crispin Bai, who stood up during the Bomas Conference, the Constitutional Conference, and defended devolution and was assassinated just days after. And I think when I look at MCAs talking about devolution and treating it as something that isn't something that should be sacredly guarded, I remember the death of Crispin. And Trevor, to you, because this is a question that has emerged time and time again, MCAs should be treated as the guardian angels of our devolution. And when people ask about a car grant, I would like to remind the public that this was not a conversation that started in Sagana. You remember that in 2014, the MCAs had a caucus meeting in Mombasa, and they discussed these things at length. And you remember, and maybe to bring to your attention, Trevor, the Constitution mirrors the County Assembly and the National Assembly. So, you know, MCAs are also, they also deserve to get their equal share of justice. And if National Assembly and the members of Parliament are getting car grants and all of those benefits, then surely the MCAs also deserve it. And I don't think it's an issue of a bribe. It has been, and you see, it is a process that has been championed by the SRC. And the SRC is the only body within Kenya that has the mandate to give judgment and advice on issues of remuneration and salaries, and they gave their advice depending and also following the advice by the COG that this money was available, and they managed to convert this money not as a loan but in form of a grant. And if the members of National Assembly are getting this money, then the MCAs deserve their fair share.
Maliba, what do you make of this entire conversation? Do the people even understand what the BBI entails? Because you've heard it from the videos there.
Well, I've looked at the videos around there and I chuckle at it because repeatedly I get the feeling that BBI is different things to different people. But just before looking at that, I would like to go back to where Aggie has actually just left. And I stand at a point where I think BBI is actually necessary as a national remaking process and moment, but it's not what it's being actually sold to people out there. Because a number of the things in BBI, including what I have seen on videos, young people talking about tax waivers and such, those things are not in the bills that are actually in the county assemblies. A number of things in the constitution, of course, were posing a challenge to the leaders. You look at Article 27, for example, it's been very difficult. And every time we talk about Article 27, we forget to talk about Article 100 that then brings in youth, persons with disabilities, the minorities, and the marginalized, besides women. So literally, Article 27 cannot be read without looking at Article 100. It will be unfair for us to actually just take care of Article 27.8 and not look at Article 100. It's important. Those issues were difficult to take care of. It went to Parliament and 3 times it failed. But what is happening in county assemblies is what I actually call legislative banditry. BBI has actually presented a kill zone for MCAs and county assemblies, where all of a sudden, I know Agi wants to say that, of course, these guys discussed in Mombasa, while in Mombasa, the president said a resounding no. And even as we try to say that SRC is independent, you know, sometimes we really love to joke. What Uhuru Kenyatta wants, Uhuru gets. So even as we get around, we know that BBI has got elements of trying to remake the nation, and it's necessary. But MCAs have realized that actually BBI then presents not a constitutional moment, but for them, it presents a kill zone where for them, they actually are milking this cow dry. They have actually asked for car grants, and the president said in Sagana, you guys will get it. And even the MCAs who actually are opposing this thing are not opposing it because there is something fundamentally wrong with it. The guys in Baringo were actually opposed to BBI. You know, this is a political process, so we can actually try to get very pragmatic around it, but that's not what it is. The guys in Baringo were only rejecting the BBI process in solidarity with a certain part of the political divide. The people in Siaya also did the same. You realize that the public participation that Kipto is talking about, it's a mockery, and I'm even surprised that he will talk about that, and he's a learned friend. He knows these things. Too well, Article 10 takes care of that. Whether it is a referendum or anything else, Article 10 should primarily be the peg upon which everything is hanged. So, public participation is actually being made a mockery of, because county assemblies puts an advert today. People meet today, and in the evening they actually have passed, for example. Others do the same today, and in the evening they've actually then brought it down. You know, those are jokes. The threshold around public participation has actually been very, very dicey, because somehow the people in parliament, and I dare say the people in government, didn't want to have a framework that can actually ensure that public participation is what the Constitution really thought about. We do not have something called the Citizen Fora. It's been very difficult for us to push through the public participation bill. The guidelines we have, you only need, what you need, Trevor, here is to just have a few people meeting, and then they fill a form. Sometimes you give them 500 shillings and they go home, and that is public participation. It's a mockery of what Article 10 and the whole thing about it is. A few of those things that people are pushing, like I've seen a chair here talk about ward fund, for example. Ward fund in itself offends the division, or rather the separation of powers. Ward fund, just like CDF, should properly be in the province of the executive, whether it's the county or the national. But somehow we are actually, again, bribing them, not just with car grants, but we are giving them an extra, when we talk about ward funds, if they're going to mirror what CDF is, it's an illegality we can get around. I know we are a very clever nation, and we know how to get around laws. But CDF and even that ward fund, if they insist on making it to actually take the CDF model, it is a bribe in so many ways.
Honorable Home, are you concerned that the counties that are passing this or shooting it down are doing it for the wrong reasons? Because if, for example, Kipto and his county are confused of even how to conduct the public participation, on what basis are the other ones passing or rejecting it then?
I think, Trevor, is that all the assemblies, and I think Joshua here, the Speaker for Nandi, I believe that he is organizing his members for very serious training. Just like the way all the county assemblies, we have cancelled them. That it's important that as we get into this document, that our members really understand where they want to take it and what it means for this country and for their counties. We had a very serious training for the governing council members, who are 2 members plus the speaker from every county assembly in Mombasa with the Professor Odote, a constitutional scholar, and we went cross by cross in this document, and we made our feelings about the whole document. And over and above that, we have advised all the county assemblies to ensure that they have constitutional scholars who take our members through this document. Nyandarua, we were on it on Friday, that is the 12th of this month, and our members from morning to evening were taken through every clause of this document, and they understand it, so that when we are going now for the actual public participation, not the way my friend Arnold is saying, we shall have actually 3 days. We have divided ourselves into small committees that will visit every part of Nyandarua, and there we are going to listen to our people, and we are going to ensure that we are able to advise them and also train them and teach them what the document contains. The only problem, which is a constitutional problem, and maybe the reason why Nandi and Kericho went to court, is because however much you listen to the people, except of imparting knowledge on them or in them about what the document contains, there is nothing you can do about that document. And that is the constitution, that is the law. And therefore for us is that we need our people. I think this public participation is not public participation per se. We want to move together with our people. They understand exactly what is happening. Because the constitution itself does not allow any input from the people once the document is out there.
So you're admitting that there's no public participation?
The public participation, we are doing it, but I'm saying it is an issue of sensitization, that we want to carry our people along with us. They understand what really this document is all about. Because there is no input that you can make to this document. If you understand it, then it will be your decision to either vote yes or no.
The way it is.
Trevor, I think I wanted to disabuse one fact. I think my colleague talked about, Maliba.
Yes.
Maliba spoke about mockery of our process. I think you only need to work with the county assemblies, of which my chair has been. He's a second-timer speaker, and he would make you understand what it takes to do public participation. There's a way at the grassroots how it is done, where maybe in his ivory tower, he would see it as a mockery of a process. You have a public participation exercise which has two components. There's a civic education component. If I'm to take my MCAs to the field with the constitutional bill, what kind of participation am I conducting? Will I just share the bills? And you know, he's lucky he's learned. How about the villager who may not even understand English? One, I have to translate. Number two, I have to break it down and make them see without any bias and tell them these are the good things, these are the bad things. And then we tell them this is our position. Number two, it is not that Nandi County Assembly is confused about the public participation. It is just we wanted guidance. That's why we seek an advisory opinion, where we ask the court to provide guidance. And that becomes a precedent, because the same civil society has been complaining about a public participation bill. Don't you think this is enriching part of their issue? Because the Supreme Court now is able to tell you, now that the Constitution does not allow you to amend a full stop or a comma, but the manner expected, the threshold expected, I would expect to be told civic education becomes important. More importantly, I think the issue about assemblies not conducting public participation is an individual case by case. And that's why I've made a case and say, why are we crucifying county assemblies? Only 4 have done it. If for whatever political consideration they undertook, so be it. But the rest of us, which we would want to show, we just don't go blind. We just don't decide on a single day that we'll table in the morning. And you know, that bad precedent in the first place, it is bad manners that was projected from the national government to Nairobi County Assembly. So these bad manners that is borrowed from national government. But at the county level, we've been doing public participation in a better way. So for example, let me give an example. In Nandi County, last Thursday, we only tabled and allocated the committee, Justice, Legal Affairs. Then we give the committee up to 30 days. That is a period within which they have to give us a timetable, we have to advert, and we give a 7-day notice. Within that period of time, we have to avail copies within that notice period. When we proceed to the field, we basically go conduct civic education, and we make it clear to the voters that we are not intending to amend anything here, but we want to hear from you. So that when we come back to the assembly, each of the elected member, each of the nominated member is reporting back and say, my constituency feels this way.
Does that mean then that the other counties failed to follow that process, and therefore it was illegal what they've done?
Now, we have a case of I think I would call it decorum. I may not be in a position to accuse a fellow speaker at my level, because that would be tantamount to interference.
But they didn't follow due process.
Not in any way or I don't have the knowledge how Siaya did it, as to what time period they did. I can't speak for my county assembly as a speaker, because I cannot be condescending about Baringo, about Siaya. Lastly, I wanted to add this. There's that notion that the MCAs are being bribed. Let me just bring this, and I think Chair will address this thing and we raise this matter about the car grant. This is not a new matter. In fact, it had been accepted by the president, the same president, the Jubilee government, way back in 2016. Yeah. But the modality of interpretation, and look at how this time it was done. There is no new money being given. It's just conversion. And importantly, the county assemblies have made it very clear. Yeah. Personally, I'm on record saying that will not dictate how Nandi County Assembly is going to vote. In fact, I've been going around in the county telling our residents that the final decision lies with them. Okay. Even our county assembly members will have to be subservient to the interest and the popular will of the people.
Okay, Agnes, I have to take a quick break, but I think let's give Agnes a chance, then I'll come to you.
Trevor, I think we'll lose the plot if we start critiquing the BBI referendum bill as a normal bill. It is not a normal bill, and it's not the bill that passes through the four-stage process. It's something that once it gets to the House, it goes to the first reading, then goes to the public participation. But there's something that Arnold Meliba has said. I'd like him to critique the process like this. We had a joint task force that went to the people and sat down in numerous town halls, thousands of Kenyans who gave their views on what they expect to be included in the BBI bill. We went ahead and got a steering committee that steered the process. Yeah. And you know, when you look at the AG advisory, you see that there were undertones of him implying that that public participation is a continuous process. So look at this process of the BBI bill as something that already had started, and it was a form of public participation, having all those numerous town halls. Then we had a form of public endorsement where we gathered 4.4 million signatures, handed them over to the IEBC. They cleared 1.3 signatures. Yeah. It is also a form of public participation, a public endorsement. So now having it to the county assemblies is this continuous process that necessitates the bill to be effected into a complete bill.
Okay.
We don't really want that.
Yeah. Very brief.
Probably to respond to that, and I get where Joshua is coming from. Yeah. If public participation then means that we're going to take a document to people and their input or their thoughts have no effect in the outcome or the form or shape of that process, how then is that public participation in principle? I have also seen him talk about the car grants not being bribes. But Trevor, the good book in Galatians 4:4 says that in the fullness of time, God sent his sign. The timeliness with which, or rather in which, these car grants are actually being made possible. When we were all alive and adults, I actually have got 32 teeth. And I was alive when the president was in Sagana, and when he was trying to speak, they asked car grants, and he said, leave that to me, and it worked. It cannot be a new matter. So the timing within which that has been done is obvious. Yeah. So we cannot run away from that. And immediately that was done, the people in Kakamega got very cheeky. As in a meeting with the other day, they asked for about 500,000. So why are we running away from it? Let's just call it what it is, that a section of county assemblies are involved in legislative banditry. That's what they are doing. We are trying to run away, call it good names and trying to run, but that is what is happening. Because 4.5 billion shillings, we have got teachers who have never been paid. We have got doctors who have not been paid. Why are we running away from these things? It's obvious. We know that they are trying to manipulate the executive. So, be that as it may, I still insist that BBI has got a number of important factors that need to be looked at. But a lot of these kachumbaris that has actually been added in is just sweeteners to, number one, trick young people into voting for it. Because you don't need BBI, for example, to have help taken care of. You don't need BBI to have the tax waivers. You don't even need BBI to have those extra constituencies. Because in law, IEBC should be doing reviews after every 10 years, boundary reviews. So that was going to be happening anyway. So, but if you go to my village and you ask the people in my village what BBI is bringing, they'll tell you that BBI is going to get us a new constituency. So go slow. If you mess with BBI, we will lose a constituency, which is wrong. By the virtue that they had gotten to the threshold, they were still going to get a new constituency.
Okay, I'll take a quick break. Chair, I'll come to you to address this issue of bribes in just a bit, and also there's some videos coming through. Let's have that right after this break.
The new View Sasa app. sleek, super fast, and gives you so much more. Sasa